Because I think that for the first time in all those decades, a huge number of us is finally coming to understand that it isn't working. Global warming's happening. There's a lot of movies, Syriana, Al Gore's movie, you know, the Blood Diamond, The Constant Gardener, a lot of books out now. And I think 9/11 helped us to understand some of this too. And I think in the last few years, we've really come to understand that it is not working, that we need to do something different, that we're not just stagnating, we're collapsing in a very serious way. And as I've traveled around, Confessions was first published in 2004, late 2004, and I've been basically traveling around this country and Latin America ever since. And I've seen a tremendous change just in those 2.5 years in people's attitudes. I think people really are waking up and understanding that if we want to create a decent world for our children and grandchildren, we've got to do something better. My daughter's just about to have a baby. I just got an email from her today, and she's trying very hard to buy things for her child, her unborn child, that are socially and environmentally good. And she's just been looking at cribs, and she's found 3 companies that make cribs in the United States that, you know, have good labor practices and good environmental practices. And these cribs all are something around $800, whereas a Chinese crib is $200. And she's told me, but I'm going to spend the extra money because I know that's an investment in my child's future. And I think that's how we have to look at things, that is an important investment. It's not about buying American. She would love to support the Indonesian economy or some other one as long as she knew that they weren't exploiting their laborers there and making people very, very angry. 50,000 people die every single day from hunger and hunger-related diseases. These are people growing up in very angry countries. This is not a stable world. If we want to cure terrorism, then we must get at the roots of terrorism. I've known a lot of terrorists. In the last few years, a number have come out to talk to me since writing the book, and I've never met a terrorist who wants to be a terrorist. Now, I know there are fanatical leaders out there. There are certainly some people that want to be doing that kind of thing, but just like the Minutemen during the American Revolution, most of these people want to be back on their farms. They're terrorists because our oil companies destroyed their lands, or hydroelectric dams flooded their lands, because they don't have a family, they don't have a means of income. They don't want to be terrorists. And I think we're all beginning to get this now. We're beginning to really understand it on such a large scale that we're now finally in a position and prepared to do something about it. So I'm very optimistic. And also because these organizations that we've talked about here today earlier have set a precedent that we really can change the corporations, and the corporations want to change themselves. The people within the good people in all these corporations that want to change it. So we need to appeal to that side of them. As to Darfur, you know, and what's going on in the Sudan and the neighboring Congo, where in the Congo, in a way, I think is even more serious. We don't hear so much about it because it's not oil. It's the best kept secret out there that about 4 million people have died in the last decade over coltan, which is a mineral that's in almost every laptop computer and every cell phone, because we demand of our cell phone and computer companies cheap computers and cell phones. 4 million people have died mining this stuff and in the wars over keeping it cheap. Most of us don't even know that. We need to know that, and we need to pay higher prices for these things, but only when we insist that that money goes to those people, because those are angry people. Those are potential terrorists. Those are the people that we must take care of, if not for outright good moral reasons, for our own best self-interest and that of our children. In Darfur, it's about oil in Darfur. Neighboring Congo, it's about coltan. Africa really, I think, is the dead canary at this point in the cave. Africa is a place that we keep as a big secret, because if it's the secret, then nobody really needs to talk about it. People don't know what's going on, and I think that's been an intentional plan on our part to keep it a secret. And it's a terrible secret, a place where 3 million children die every year of starvation, a place where 43 out of the 53 countries in Africa suffer from terrible poverty and degradation, where HIV and malaria and polio and tremendous other diseases are rampant, where the average life expectancy is 46, which is the same as we had in the year 1900. And most of us don't realize that. And yet Africa is providing us with incredible resources Yes, the economic hitmen are hard at work in Darfur, and so are the jackals. And we must, write our congressmen. I hope that everybody here will insist that in the next election that these candidates talk about what we're doing to the world. Let's get that out there. Let's talk about it. Let's have that be part of the next election as well as global warming. Let's just not talk about same-sex marriage in Iraq and, stem cells, which we did in the last election. Let's take this to a level that's really important for all of us. Would any of you ladies from Ethiopia care to comment on Africa at all? Don't feel any pressure, but if you want to. Okay. Thank you. Microphone.
Thank you. My question is how in the world are the corporations going to change? What puzzles me is this: the corporation A goes through this year and makes a fortune. All the investors in the corporation come home with a good-sized check and their wives feel happy they can buy more buttons, right? Okay, the second year they decide to become good guys. They go through the same year, make the same amount of money. They take a good amount of that money and spend it on a lot of people in this country who have no health care. How in the world is the head of that corporation going to survive if he does that? I would imagine any corporation would bounce this guy because the investors got a third of what they got before. That really puzzles me. I really do agree with your optimism. I don't know how the hell it's going to happen. I mean that.
Well, it's going to happen because we're going to force it to happen. Just very recently at the Geico stockholders meeting, Geico being the lizard company, insurance company, one of the stockholders stood up and asked the CEO, why are you making so much money? How can you justify your paycheck? And the CEO then made a commitment that in the future the stockholders will determine his salary. And that's sweeping the industry. I know a lot of people in the insurance industry who are now pressuring their CEOs to do the same thing. We must insist, stand up at those stockholder meetings, get the word out, insist that our presidential candidates and our governor's candidates and senatorial and everybody else talk about these things, get these on the table. We can do it. We've been so successful at turning things around. And again, you look back at the American Revolution and you can, during the Boston Tea Party, many of the people who became our founders, what we consider our founders today, were appalled. They criticized these people as rebels and radicals, and they should never have done the Boston Tea Party. And then as we move forward through the revolution, there were always the naysayers. There were always the ones that said, we can't possibly beat the British Empire. How can we do it? There were the loyalists and what we call today the Tories, et cetera. And George Washington, never got Congress behind him. He never got shoes for his army. He had to go out and scrounge. He didn't get food. He didn't get ammunition. He kept going. And a lot of other people kept going. We're always going to have the naysayers. We're always going to have people out there saying it can't be done. And there were plenty of people at Rainforest Action Network and Pachamama Alliance who from the beginning said, you can't do this. You're not going to bring Mitsubishi around. Citicorp, you're not going to bring Citicorp around. Citicorp's a great example because Rainforest Action Network had a struggle with Citicorp. They wouldn't talk to them. And then the CEO of Citicorp was going to Europe. I think it was going to London to meet with all these important people from Citicorp in Europe, and he gets up to have breakfast and sees on the back page of the London Times this huge picture of him where it says wanted and for destroying the world's rainforests, committing genocide against indigenous people. I don't know the exact words, but you got the picture. And he knows that everybody's going to be at this meeting he's about to attend, reads the Times. They've all seen this ad. How did he feel walking into that meeting? And then he gave $100 million to his alma mater, Columbia. And he went to receive a reward. And as he's going into the auditorium's picketed by Rainforest Action Network people carrying these same signs with his picture saying, wanted. And there he is. So a couple of days later, he calls Rainforest Action Network, or somebody does at his organization, and they negotiate. These people are human, and they want to do the right thing. The ones that, we've got to push them. We've got to let them know that we want Fortune to not honor the 500 richest men, but to honor the 500 men and women who've done the most to make this a better planet for our people. We want the televisions filled with these people, not the rich and famous, but the ones who've done the right thing, the Randy Hayeses and the Mike Brune.